Good morning and welcome to everyone that braved this lovely weather that we have outside. And we're seeing smiling faces that are permanent now because they're frozen that way, so that's good. It's perfect. All right, welcome to Economic Standing Policy Committee for December 21st. We'll start off with a roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Mayor Higgin. Councillor Campbell.
Present.
Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Crowson. I see her, she's waving. Vice Chair Middleton Hope.
Present.
Councillor Dodick.
Under duress, present.
Councillor Palladino.
Present.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Parker. And Mayor Higgin.
Here.
Present. Thank you.
Right. City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we're gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. I do have a resolution from Vice Chair, Councillor Middleton Hope. Adoption of Agenda 3.0. Be it resolved, the agenda of the Economic Standing Policy Committee meeting on December 21st, 2022 be adopted as presented. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would ask my colleagues to, having had an opportunity to have a robust examination of the minutes from the previous meetings, are there any additions, deletions, modifications that they would like to make at this time?
Thank you, Vice Chair. There are 3 additions to today's agenda. They all are closed confidential items and they're all verbals. And so they'll go to section 7, which is a new section, closed section. So the first one is homeless shelter building lease agreement update. That'll be 7.1. The second one is regulated rate option legislation and funding agreement update, 7.2. And the last one is intergovernmental update, 7.3. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any additions, deletions?
Happy birthday, Nick.
I'm afraid I can't see. Oh, there we are. Councillor Carlson and Councillor Crowson. No additions? You have it.
Right. Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? So carries. And the consent agenda from Councillor Carlson. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Economic Standing Policy Committee meetings held on November 14th to 18th, 2022 be approved and the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. And further be resolved that the status of initiatives for 2022-12-21 be received as information. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope everyone had a chance to review them. Probably the longest minutes I've ever had the pleasure of reviewing. I didn't notice anything except I did a quick tally, and I seemed to be on the losing end of the most votes throughout those 5 days. And there was also a period around N15, 16, 17, something in that number where I was absent, and apparently the meeting went much quicker. So I apologize for all the times I was present. And on the status of initiatives, the only two we have are being taken care of today. And so we'll be starting the year with a clean slate. Unless there's anything from my colleagues, I will call the vote.
I see no questions, so take that as your motion to call. All in favor? Any opposed? It carries. Okay, if it's okay with my colleagues, we do have one presentation and a submission. If we can do the submission prior to the presentation, if that's okay. It kind of flows and fits in with the presentation. So the submission first, seeing no issues. We'll start off with 6.1 from Mr. Elliott, Director of Community Customer, Corporate, and Commercial Services regarding the Lethbridge Destination Management Organization funding. Is there any questions that anybody has on that, on 6.1? Just a verbal update. Is there anything to add? So, well, Mr. Elliott?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Hagan, and good afternoon, members of Economic SPC. As committed back in October 19th, to be precise, at our Economic SPC meeting, the Lethbridge Lodging Association and Tourism Lethbridge agreed to get together and have a facilitated, mediated session to begin conversations around a renewed path forward on a relationship. And I just want to provide a quick update to members of SPC as to how that went and how it's going. Mr. Rob Harvey was agreed to by both parties as the mediator. And the first mediation meeting was held on December 12th here at City Hall. Representing Tourism Lethbridge was the CEO, board chair, and 4 board members. Representing the Lethbridge Lodging Association was the operational lead, board president, and past president. And there were also 3 representatives in attendance from the city. The role of the city representatives was to listen and to answer any questions. I can report that discussions were respectful, direct, focused, and in the end, helpful. Some learning took place for all involved. The parties then agreed before the conclusion of the session to meet again on January 11th with a modified attendance list. So for the meeting on January 11th, we will have in attendance the CEO of Tourism Lethbridge, the Lethbridge Lodging Association operational lead, and 1 city representative, and the mediator will be in attendance as well. The expected outcomes for this second session will be continued discussions around clarity of what each organization does and is responsible for, clear expectations for each organization, agreed to understanding of how to move forward together, and enhanced awareness of the city's role and expectations. So just in general commentary, the first session was productive. It needed to happen, and I think all parties would agree that we feel that we're on a good trajectory to continue that dialogue and ensure that we're striving towards role clarity moving forward.
And thank you very much, Mr. Elliott. It's exciting to hear that the great news that come forward and that those conversations continue going forward. Is there any questions, my colleagues? Seeing none, I do have, I'll open it up, the resolution from Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel, Lethbridge Destination Management Organization funding, verbal 6.1, and be it resolved the Economic Standing Policy Committee receive this verbal update for information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad and excited and happy to see that this has gone on and that it was a productive meeting and that we've got some positive outcomes coming out of it and moving forward. That is very good news with these 2 organizations. If there are no further questions from any of my colleagues or debate, I will call the vote on this.
Right. Any questions, debate? Seeing none. Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next, we'll move to the presentation 5.1 from Ms. Slovak, General Manager of Opportunity Lethbridge, regarding Regional Economic Development and Tourism Strategy Phase 1 Draft Vision.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of Economic SPC. My name is Abby Slovak. I'm the General Manager of Opportunity Lethbridge, and I'm here today to share with you our draft vision, which is phase 1 of the Regional Economic and Tourism Strategy. Next slide, please. So this envisioning storybook is a vital document that articulates the region's economic and tourism vision, establishes a narrative framework for socializing and sharing the vision, and sets the stage for subsequent operational and communications initiatives geared toward bringing that vision to life. City Council's 2022 action plan identified the need to create a regional economic development and tourism strategy. What I'll be presenting to you today is phase 1 of that strategy, the vision. How will Lethbridge and the region be perceived and experienced in 2042? This vision allows businesses, residents, entrepreneurs, operators, dreamers, and doers to see themselves in the city's future, one that is full of opportunities to thrive, grow, and experience an exceptional quality of life. This vision is important because with a common vision, organizations, partners, and anyone supporting this vision can ensure we are unified in our understanding of the future Lethbridge we are working to create, identify and leverage synergies, shared interests, and economies of scale, nurture collaboration rather than competition, maximizing access and resources, and help stakeholders understand their roles in achieving this vision. Having a vision allows us to capitalize on emerging trends, technologies, and social evolutions that will shape the future. Instead of being stuck in the moment, we can look ahead and craft future-forward strategies and plans that allow us to achieve greater ambitions. But to ensure this vision becomes a reality, the next phase of this project, the implementation, will also be key. This is where you will find the specific actions, outcomes, and targets. Next slide, please. To create that vision, the City of Lethbridge formed a stakeholder group consisting of Economic Development Lethbridge, Tourism Lethbridge, and Lethbridge and District Exhibition. We engaged Honeycomb Solutions, Susan and Steve, to provide support in facilitating stakeholder engagement and synthesizing that feedback into a vision that honors the community's ideas, dreams, aspirations, and blue sky thinking. And that is what we have done. We held broad stakeholder engagement that included 4 visioning charrettes, where we heard from more than 70 people representing 27 different organizations. We also held more than 20 one-on-one interviews with various industry representatives and community leaders. You can find that list on page 14 of the document. All of that culminated into the formation of this draft that we're here to share with you today. After receiving your feedback today, we will finalize the document and share it with our broad stakeholder group. Next slide, please. So here's the vision statement that came out of the document. By building on our strengths, sustaining our natural assets, and advancing our quality of life, the Lethbridge region will be, in 2042, a healthy, prosperous, and inviting community that feeds the world, leads the world, and welcomes the world. Next slide, please. To ensure the vision is something that could come to fruition, there were a number of infrastructure and planning considerations that were included. So we looked at making sure that we're sustaining the region's affordability advantage, modernizing the grid and enabling our tech-heavy future, delivering a future-proof transportation network, protecting the water supply and managing environmental impacts, increasing urban vibrancy and cultivating a sense of place, building a healthier healthcare sector, encouraging densification and expanding the region's multifamily inventory, and growing our cultural capital, embracing Indigenous culture, and honoring new faces, culture, and talent. Next slide, please. I would now like to delve into some of the emerging trends that we heard in our stakeholder engagement. We need to remain competitive. There will continue to be competition and likely far fiercer than before for talent, investment, and business growth. We need to lean into our uniqueness, our advantages, and what sets us apart, and work to remove barriers. Population growth. We will continue to see population growth. We will continue to grow by 2,000 people plus per year. We will see continued cultural diversity. Canada's Century Initiative, with the goal of having 100 million Canadians by the year 2100, could see our population swell by 40,000 people by 2042. These new faces will bring desires for diversity, art, culture, and recreation. Excuse me. Green energy, autonomous vehicles, automated everything. New tech will change the way we live, learn, earn, and visit. In agriculture, new farming practices, tech, equipment will continue to emerge as we deal with environmental issues and food security. Next slide, please. Excuse me. I hate to utter these words, but we have to be mindful and planful for future pandemics. Risk management and supply chain resilience will be key. In education, the classroom has evolved and continues to evolve, where students can learn from anywhere, more applied learning and prioritization of research, and we are seeing curated student experiences happening. And in tourism, we are seeing more demand for agritourism and educational experiences, work from anywhere tourists, technology revolutionizing how people choose their destinations, accommodations, and activities, growth and support in tourism, and continued differentiation in tourism products, collaborations, and experiences. Next slide, please. Excuse me. We will now move into the three themes. The first, Southern Alberta feeds the world. Next slide. Oh, I have some. I'm okay.
Oh, you got some there, okay.
Sorry, this dry weather is wreaking havoc on my voice. Okay, so we are an agricultural heartland. Our history and identity and economic future are tied to agricultural food production. We want to be Canada's epicenter of agricultural excellence. To do this, we need to expand Canada's premier food corridor. We need to continue to drive investment attraction and advocacy to solidify our future as an agricultural leader. 4.2 million acres of farmland and superior irrigation systems make us a prime choice for investment, and we need to keep singing that song. Ongoing leadership in research and development. Groundbreaking research is happening in this community. At the U of L, Lethbridge College, the Research Station, the Animal Disease Research Institute, Farmer's Edge, Farming Smarter, and Blue Sky Spectropsky, to name a few. We also need to continue to leverage the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center. I know that many members of SPC had an opportunity to tour the enormity of this 268,000 square foot structure, but we're all anxiously waiting to experience what this facility will do for our community and region. With an estimated $90 million annual contribution to the regional economy to start, the Agri-Food Hub will position us as a premier destination for agri-food conferences and events. The finest and largest farm-to-table culinary experiences will really showcase all the region has to offer. Next slide, please. Now we'll move into theme number 2, Southern Alberta leads the world. Southern Alberta, next slide, please. Southern Alberta, along with the rest of the world, will be on a journey to cut emissions, transition from fossil fuel dependency to clean energy, and move toward net zero. In order to get there, we need to expand Canada's Western Gateway and YQL. Canada's Western Gateway, as you know, is a trade and logistics corridor for food and agri-food manufacturing industries. It moves billions of dollars of commodities to market each year and requires logistics and trade to thrive. The Western Gateway will need to accommodate, power, and service the vehicles of the future. Warehousing and distribution facilities need to be able to accommodate automation technology, and there is an opportunity for Lethbridge Airport with some 900 acres of developable land to provide warehousing, distribution, and operate as an air cargo hub. We need continued leadership in clean energy. Around the world, governments are laying out targets to cut emissions and increase renewable energy initiatives. Companies are conscious about where their energy comes from, and this is often an early topic of conversation when new investors inquire with us. Southern Alberta sees massive growth in wind and solar, and we estimate much more on the horizon. Training up skills and evolving our workforce. According to a February 2022 report by RBC's Economic Research Unit, we can expect 15% of the labor force, so that's approximately 3.1 million jobs in Canada, to change in some way over the next decade. and RBC warns us that we could be on the cusp of a generational skills crisis. In order to secure our future, our post-secondaries play a vital role in developing top talent for the ever-evolving job market. Next slide, please. Okay, the last one, theme number 3, Southern Alberta welcomes the world. Next slide. 330 days of sunshine, close proximity to 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, the Coulees, the River Valley. Lethbridge has multi-dimensional appeal for visitors of all ages. But as we emerge from the pandemic, what is the new normal? How has tourism evolved? In order for us to welcome the world, we need to focus on growing a food and agritourism district. I talked earlier about the importance of the Agri-Food Hub. It will be the epicenter of an edutainment district focused on all things agriculture. It will draw additional farm-to-table experiences that will connect visitors to our local food systems, culture, and heritage. We will become Canada's kitchen table. Feeding the appetite for Indigenous tourism and embracing new immigrant culture. The desire to experience and learn about other cultures has long been a powerful catalyst for tourism and the visitor economy. In 2019, Indigenous tourism contributed $1.78 billion to the Canadian economy and employed 37,000 people. Expanding awareness of the importance of Indigenous culture and reconciliation is opening up tremendous opportunities for First Nations communities. And with significant influx of immigrants, there's much interest in cultural inclusivity and embracing new customs, traditions, arts, festivals, and cultural norms of Lethbridge's newest immigrant populations. Playing to people's love of sport. Our region's climate, location, and foundational infrastructure create huge opportunities. Golf courses, ATB Center, the NMAX, and our past successes with curling, hockey, cycling events, we will continue to see growth and attract even more events. Next slide, please. Hosting the world with a lighter footprint. To protect the resources, attractions, and region's offerings, it will be important to mindfully manage traffic and the environmental impacts of our visitors. And then finally, immersing the world in our virtual attractions. To make sure we get people to come and see Lethbridge and the region's offerings, we have to make sure we are sufficiently whetting their appetites online. Next slide. And so I'll close with just offering up our next steps. So from here, we're interested to get your feedback today, incorporate any additional feedback into the draft, and then be able to share it with our stakeholders. We'd like to move forward with the vision adoption and then begin socializing this vision document. Then working with partners and alliances on planning and collaborating and preparing for the development of the implementation plan. And then finally, bringing that implementation plan to action. And with that, that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Slovak. That was great, all-inclusive. It was great to see that, as it's been a question of council here, going back, of course, to budget deliberations. I know you'd asked about feedback today. I know this has been going on for months, this project, so I don't know if there's some soak time that colleagues may need on this. We've had it for a few days, obviously, so it's something that may require more time. I'll speak for myself, but I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Dodick.
I always have concerns about studies like this and the presentations that arise from the consultations that you indicated you had. So I see 70 plus individuals, 27 organizations, one-on-one interviews with greater than 20 industry representatives. And how do you know that you're actually getting the information that we really need to be able to come up with a vision for a strategy like this? And I preface that by saying, we're often told in statistics that you got to look up validity and reliability as being important. Validity being, does it actually measure what it's supposed to measure? Reliability, if you take the same measurements over time, will it be replicated over a period of time? So what sort of assurances can you give to council that in fact we have got a representative sample, a representative statistically valid sample to be able to come up with a vision at some point in time, as you were suggesting we will be?
So I think we worked with our stakeholder group, our core committee, which was Economic Development Lethbridge, Tourism Lethbridge, and Exhibition Park, to identify key individuals, businesses, organizations in the community that would have a stake or should be involved in this engagement. So we made that huge list. It included folks from businesses, from the chamber, members of boards in the community, the school districts, the university, the college, you know, the arts community, environment, tons of people. So with that, then we had 4 charrettes. And then after the charrettes, we felt like there were some people that weren't able to attend or some other additional voices that we needed to be part of this. And so that's where the 20 one-on-one sessions happened. You know, the table in page 14 describes who we've talked to. You know, it would be great to be able to talk to everybody, but if there were additional people that or businesses that we did need to be involved, there is an opportunity still to do more one-on-one engagement with them.
For people like myself who don't know what a charrette is, what is a charrette?
A meeting in which all stakeholders in a project attempt to resolve conflicts and map solutions.
Guess I should have read that, huh?
Oh, I'm reading it now. I just
Somebody
looked it up.
just had the same question, I think, as you.
It's not a dance, huh?
I think you could switch the word with workshop and it would work the same.
Okay, were there any discussions, for example, with, Travel Alberta, or you just focused on localization?
Travel Alberta has not been part of the conversation to date, just with our local tourism partners.
Okay, and so that would be the tourism partners within the city of Lethbridge. Any discussions with the county at all?
The county, yes, was at our engagement sessions, as well as South Grow and what's their name? Alberta Southwest. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Councillor Middleton Hope to offer a definition or a question?
No, a question, but
All right.
you've now had the definition. Ms. Slovak, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the work on this. Although the proposal was lengthy, help me out. Did it talk about partnerships on developing the airport, on developing Highway 3, developing Highway 4, and perhaps even Highway 5 to accommodate transportation and tourism? There is a lot of focus in this project around tourism, which certainly is an asset. But I'm more interested in, quite honestly, how we're going to develop access to, whether it's from the highways, whether it's from the airport, to a business market. And what are we doing as a part of this plan to enhance and to provide opportunities for businesses, the larger businesses, to move here and establish a presence in southern Alberta?
So as I said earlier, we wanted to do this project in 2 phases. So this is really around creating the vision. What do we want what's important to Lethbridge? So what do we want to be important for the airport? You know, what's important for trade and logistics? From there, the next stage now will be to go away and build an implementation plan. So that will have those key strategies and actions, partnerships around supporting those vision items that were set out in here.
Maybe take another stab at it, because it didn't sound to me, I'm listening for business, and I didn't hear that.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, the focus of what you've done thus far seems to be very tourism-oriented. So what I'm interested in is, what are we doing in terms of developing partnerships, whether it's with the provincial government or private enterprise and so forth, to enhance the infrastructure that exists currently, so the airport, the highways and so forth, to allow businesses to be attracted here and to conduct business. I see it from a tourism perspective, but I'm not sure that I see it from a business perspective. So is that coming in the next phase, or?
In the document, it does outline the importance of Canada's premier food corridor, about Western Gateway, about YQL, and about, you know, ensuring that those assets are strengthened for the future. And so the plan then would be to use this document to develop the implementation plan. I mean, those are specific to economic development and boosting those assets, but there's also, tourism sections within the document. So then we would take that vision and go away and then build the implementation plan based on those vision items in here. Sorry if I'm not answering
No,
that.
that's okay. So farming, get it. Agri-food, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. There are other industries that we need to be focusing on. We need to continue to diversify our industries. We can't simply rely on one initiative, whether it's agri-food and the agri-food corridor and so forth. We need to be focusing on what our future is going to hold for us in terms of the development of other assets, right? So I'm just thinking in terms of perhaps that'll be into the additional phases of how we then position ourselves to provide for the opportunities for businesses like, I'll pick one, Amazon moving here. What does that look like? What do we need to do to prepare for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'll let you go. Thanks.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is allowed or not, so I'll leave it to you or the folks I'm going to call on, because I noticed that we've got the executive directors of Lethbridge Tourism and Economic Development Lethbridge. Is it allowable for me to ask a question through you to them?
Yes, absolutely. I do actually was going to ask after there's any members of the public that wanted to speak as well, if they had anything, but you're definitely welcome to ask them for sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if they were going to make a comment or representation, but my question would be, and if they were going to do this later, they could choose to do so later, is how Lethbridge 2042, the economic and tourism vision and thoughts contained therein, I'll say, how they align or perhaps even diverge from some of your initiatives and plans over the next 4 years.
And that's directed to, you want that directed to both tourism and economic development?
Yeah, either Ms. Crane or Mr. Lewington. I see them both there.
Okay.
I'd love to hear from both of you, since we're going to be debating some of your initiatives. And the reason for delaying the debate on your initiatives was to receive this report. I'm not sure that it answers the questions that Economic SPC had during those debates, but I'm just wondering if you want to maybe take us through some of your initiatives and how Lethbridge 2042 aligns or doesn't align.
So thanks for the question, Councillor Carlson. I'll do my best to take a stab at it, and then my esteemed colleague here from Tourism Lethbridge can chime in. I think, if you look at new initiatives that were proposed, N39, N40, N41, they speak specifically to the themes that are contemplated in this report. This is the city's report, so City Council requested it. It was conducted by an external consultant, and although we had input, our new initiatives were required to be submitted before the report was completed or made available. So I think it's natural that there are going to be some things that are in that report that either don't align or aren't included in our specific initiatives. But to Councillor Middleton-Hope's previous question around how does this, drive business, I mean, that's exactly what N39, 40, and 41 are intended to do, to drive diversification, to attract new businesses to our community. So I would say, it shouldn't be a surprise that Lethbridge 2042 includes a lot of the things that are in our proposed business plan, because we were able to provide that feedback as, here are our priorities, here's why we're working on them. So I'm actually gratified to see them in the report, because I think there should be a natural flow there. And so, what we've proposed, I think, is directly related, and we've identified the priorities based on our board's feedback. Council over the years has delegated authority to EDL's board to develop a strategy for the community based on their representation of the industries and the sectors they represent. And so it shouldn't be a surprise, I think, that our initiatives, our list as developed through the board and its process this year, naturally sort of fits with what an external consultant might come across and sort of uncover for themselves. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity to answer this question as well. very similar to Mr. Lewington, that we have designed many of our strategies specifically around that. So we are working on many, if not all, of the strategies listed, especially in the Welcomes the World section of the report. You know, one of the nice things is that there are also things that are aligned with the province and the federal government as well. And this does put us in a good position to leverage additional funding around some of those specific areas. And that is one of the things that we're able to do. Many of you know about our Canada's Food Tours that aligns then in with Canada's premier food corridor. We've already started the work on growing that agri-food ecosystem, and that work continues, especially with our partners over at Lethbridge Exhibition and their new facility. So, you know, we are continuing on that path, and, you know, all of these things are aligned and are things that we are working on.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's enough from me right now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Palladino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Abby, this is for you. Out of the 27 organizations that you consulted with, and Mr. Elliott actually answered part of my question, was the Lethbridge Lodging Association one of those? And I hear that discussions are going swimmingly with that group. So were they part of the?
Yes, they were.
Second question, at the end of your PowerPoint, there was a comparison of virtual attraction versus in real life tourism. What does virtual attraction mean?
So it's really around making sure that there's enough information online about those attractions to make people want to see it, to come here. So, for example, if you were to go online and look for a hotel room, one has, and you were really concerned about the room and what it was going to be like. One has no pictures, one has detailed information that makes you want to go and see it and stay there. That's sort of what we're talking about here, making sure there's enough online to really make them want to come and experience it firsthand.
For a while, I thought you're going to put on a helmet with virtual glasses.
It could be like that.
See Lethbridge from the air or something. It's kind of neat. Thank you very much.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Slovak, the one thing I did notice that was missing on this that we have been sort of focusing some of our efforts on insofar as tourism related and attraction to our city is the meeting component. Is there a reason why that was omitted from this? Did they just not see value in that? Where did that land? Because I know that's something that we do have to focus on. People don't come to Lethbridge as a destination. They add on the tourism component when they come here. So where is that at?
I think there was discussion within the stakeholder workshops and one-on-ones around meetings, and I think a lot of that was captured through discussions around the new agri-food hub and what that will do for the community. You know, I think it was one of the themes that came out, but it certainly wasn't one of the big emerging trends to be noted, I think.
Okay. So that's something then Tourism Lethbridge wouldn't need to focus on?
No, I think that certainly they will be focusing on that to ensure that we're driving tourism to the community for meetings.
And then just taking a look through this, through both documents, is there anything in these documents that we're not already doing? Because there's a lot of stuff that's already underway. I know, right?
You have to put mute if you're online there. If you can please mute. Thank you.
I see you, Mark. So just wondering, because we've got a lot of this underway already, is it not possible we're going to wrap this up before 2042?
Maybe, and I think that would be something to celebrate.
Okay. Just because there is a lot of this that we're already working on and doing. Explain to me what visioning, adoption, and socialization means, because to me that looks like word salad.
So really it's around going out and selling this vision so that When people think about Lethbridge and the future of Lethbridge, they can see themselves in this document and then use this document to be able to plan for their futures.
Thank you very much. And then I would also just sort of reiterate what Mayor Higgins said at the beginning, that rather than getting our feedback today, it might be more beneficial for us to be able to take this away for a few weeks, take a look through it, and then provide more feedback at that time. So just to reiterate that, thank you.
Councillor Middleton-Hope.
Thank you. I'm reflecting on 2042. I sincerely hope I'm still here. I have a question in regards to recruitment, and I don't know whether it's to be focused on to you, Ms. Slovak, or perhaps Mr. Lewington, but I'm interested in what we're doing currently and what we project that we will be doing to work with businesses to assist them in recruiting qualified applicants by promoting diverse opportunities for their applicants and their families here. I can think of a number of organizations in the city that are experiencing significant difficulties in attracting people to come to the city for a variety of different reasons. And I've encouraged one organization in particular to be in touch with you and/or Economic Development Lethbridge to assist them in recruiting nationwide for applicants and their families. So can you perhaps express how we might be looking at that?
I would like to turn that over to Mr. Lewington if he's willing to answer.
So obviously that's a very broad topic. I can give you some specific examples. So workforce development is the number one priority within our business retention and expansion sort of pillar of our business plan. And so some examples of that, we've been tasked very specifically around physician recruitment, working with the city, Alberta Health Services. That's been a bit of a unique experiment where we've got a very specific landing page and specifically targeted resources on our website that are geared at luring physicians here. And the approach there has been less from a doctors doing a job as opposed to doctors own a practice and luring they're a corporation essentially, right? So the brochure is less about, hey, come to Lethbridge because you can have a job. It's, no, you could build a business, you can build a life, those kinds of things. So in the meantime, we've been requested by the police service to perhaps use that same model to assist them, which, the materials can be readily adapted, although customized. We have been working with the Lethbridge Labor Immigration Partnership for a number of years. So we're one seat at that table, better understanding how we can support newcomers in particular. A lot of the programs that we run at Tech Connect are geared towards underrepresented groups, including newcomers, in terms of entrepreneurship can be a job and might be one particular path for them to fill. We're currently in discussions with Alberta Labor and Immigration around two particular programs. So one is the rural entrepreneurship stream. And so Economic Development Lethbridge would be the agent that would work with the province to approve new immigrants who qualify with a certain dollar threshold to be landed entrepreneurs. Although that doesn't sort of address labor recruiting for some companies, it's investment attraction, but also bringing new resources to the community. And then the second stream for that is more geared to the workforce, which is specifically rural renewal is what it's called. So the town of Taber and the town of Claresholm have actually undertaken those programs. And in those particular instances, the community itself, so the town organization, has a dedicated person to work with business, process applications, and work with the province. And by doing that, employers are guaranteed labor, people are guaranteed work, and it's to move them towards their PR, their permanent residency. So we've been exploring that for Lethbridge. The challenge is there's no funding for that work, but we're exploring how we might do that anyway, but we'd be very targeted. So for example, we would say if you're in manufacturing or construction, two industries that are very specifically in need of labor, and you had 5 or more people, that we would take that on and work with you to go do that. It wouldn't be a broad brush, every job, every industry, every position, just based on the sheer resources. And so for example, in Claresholm, their economic development officer, they started this program and they had over 1,000 applications in the first few months. So it became an enormous pile of work, but it was open to everything and all things. So workforce certainly is a key priority for us. There are a number of different activities happening strategically. And we received some provincial funding to work on workforce automation, So we have a very specific grant, and it's targeted specifically at manufacturing. How do companies with lower skilled entry-level roles that they can't fill, how do they turn to technology solutions and work through that as well? So it's not always a recruiting solution. There may be technology solutions or other industry development that we can support. So there's a range of those things that we fit into the dollars we have available to structure that work.
And the focus on the recruitment of qualified applicants also, and I'm encouraged to hear that you're working with the police service after my recommendations to them to meet with you and Ms. Crane to try and develop a different model, a different strategy, because the old stuff isn't working. But it is important, and I'm sure you both recognize this, it is important to not only recruit the applicant, but to recruit the applicant's family and provide reason for the family to be here. And one of the greatest assets I think we have, apart from 305 days, Ms. Slovak, of sunshine per year, not today, is our price of housing and the ability to be able to attract families to come to Lethbridge.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Quality of life is certainly one of the lures we have. It's, for example, a dedicated section on our website, which most organizations that do economic development, why would you speak to the recreational facilities in the schools? Because you're recruiting families, you're trying to retain entire families, and so it's that more holistic approach. It is recruiting the whole person, not just their skills and what job they can do.
Right, good, thank you.
I see no further questions. If there's no further questions, I know I do have I'd like to actually reach out if there's anyone else, any members of the public that would like to make a presentation at this Standing Policy Committee. All right, seeing none, I think we've got some of the questions in that you'll probably have more of. So with that, I do have a resolution here. Now, I will bring it forward, but I think there's going to be some amendments. Well, I know there's going to be some amendments, but moved by Deputy Mayor Parker. Regional Economic Development and Tourism Strategy Draft Phase 1 Vision. Be it resolved, the Economic Standing Policy Committee received the Regional Economic Development and Tourism Strategy Draft Phase 1 Vision Report and presentation as information.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Well, I know we kind of put the pedal to the metal here. We wanted to have this presented to us, and thank you for getting this done. We kind of held off on some decisions based on getting this information, so I want to thank you for the presentation. It's a really good read. It's easy understood, and I know we have it on our City of Lethbridge website, so I'd really encourage people to go to it. It's a great resource, so I would thank Mr. Lewington as well, Ms. Crane as well, for answering the background information as well.
With that, now I do have, and I don't know if I want to ask if there's any other questions on the resolution, but I do have an amendment that's to come forward. And if we could put this up. This is Teresa. So on this one here, it's just receive for information.
So if you do have amendments, they're kind of in addition to the report. So you could do a motion arising. You could put it that way if you like.
I see it right now as information, and that's just fine, but it doesn't speak to, I don't believe, to what council has to come back on today from budget deliberations. It kind of is received for information, so I don't know my amendment on the way that this is set up, if that would be, I'm looking to yourself.
Yeah, so the initiatives were referred from budget to this meeting, to this specific item. I'm just going to look to Mr. Westerson. The initiatives were added to this report.
Yeah.
So you could do it either way. Okay, so.
To do, so actually, do you want to do motions arising?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what, I'm just thinking because that separates them out into the amendment 1, amendment 2, amendment.
Because I look at them being attached, we've got N39 and 40 and 42 and 56, but what we heard today was more on that strategy that Ms. Slovak brought forward, and I don't know for me if it really spoke as much to each of those budget initiatives. So maybe a motion arising, because this should be information that we have today going into our January 24th meeting to be approved at that time. So if it's motion arising,
You could do it that way. Motions arising are related to the items, so this is related. As I said, this one was a different animal because the initiatives were referred to this meeting, to this item, and they are attached as attachments. So
okay.
you could do it either way. The intent is there.
Okay, so are there, I mean, they're attached, so I guess we can still go with amendment. Either way will work. I just, the way that I see the resolution written by Deputy Mayor Parker's read off is we receive the presentation as information, which is fine. Now, is it another part, so motion rising is where you say we would go from there?
Could we do four motions out of this one item? So this is motion 5.1.
Actually, your mic on.
Could we do it as four motions out of this as opposed to amendments? So we've got motion 5.1, which is this, receive the report as information. Motion 5.2, which then speaks to the creative industries. Motion 5.3, which then speaks to the economic development Lethbridge initiatives. And then motion 5.4, which then speaks to the tourism Lethbridge initiatives. Could we do that instead?
We could definitely do that.
Let's split it up into the 5.1, 2, 3, 4 then.
Do that, so either way, they're
Just
all
to make
in
them-
there as one,
they're
so we
all in
could
there
do
as
it
one,
as this
but
way,
it just
or-
makes it cleaner, right?
So five point, if we do want to add, now that is changing the agenda, as long as we're all, that's fine with the agenda. Change that 5.2, 3, and 4. Fine, I don't see any against that, all right. So 5.1, we'll go back. Any debate on Deputy Mayor Parker's 5.1? Seeing none, take it as your question being called.
Question?
All in favor? Any opposed? That carries, all right. Jen? Jeff, you opposed it, sorry?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think there might be a delay. My hand was up for in favor.
Or Councillor Dodek could be making things up.
I do believe Councilor Crowson is having some technical difficulties.
Yes, you can hear me but can't see me. I'm in favor.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. All right, so instead of Amendment 1, we're going to do a motion arising, and this will be 5.2. And that's motion arising, so that, and I will have Councillor Middleton Hope, as it's my motion arising, if you want to read this, 5.2, we can put that on the screen. The amendment one will change to 5.2, Ryan.
I can sit here. All right. Regional Economic Development and Tourism Strategy Draft Phase 1 Vision. Whereas Economic Development Lethbridge, EDL, and subsequently City Administration have presented to Lethbridge City Council recognizing the importance of creative industry for the economy of Alberta and the potential opportunities for Lethbridge. Whereas both Administration and Economic Development Lethbridge play a key role in setting Lethbridge up for success. Whereas building creative industries is a new era, or area, of exploration for the City of Lethbridge. Whereas Lethbridge City Council has directed administration to develop a creative industries policy and administrative process and report back in 2023. Whereas a related initiative, N41, was brought forward through the 2023-2026 operating budget process and referred to this meeting. And whereas until these internal processes are complete, the city's role, responsibilities, and future path will not yet be realized. Therefore, be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council, 1, direct administration to continue with previous direction on developing a creative industries policy and administrative process in partnership and collaboration with EDL. 2, allocate MRSR one-time funding of $45,000 in 2023 for administration to hire creative industry consulting services to aid and expedite creating future direction for Lethbridge. 3, for the 2023-2026 operating budget initiative N41, Economic Development Lethbridge, Creative Industries Cluster. A, cancel the 2023 funding. B, allocate the 2024 to 2026 funding for the N41 initiative contingent upon council setting administrative direction in this area by November the 14th, 2023 through the Economic Standing Policy Committee. N41, MRSR one-time allocation 2023, $0. 2024, $355,000. 2025, $238,500, and 2026, $187,070. That's Amendment 1.
Right. As there's any questions,
Are there any questions? I have
Councillor Carlson.
Carlson. Where is he? There he is. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Through you to the mover, if I can, thank you, Mayor Higgin, for bringing forward this. I just, a question on the, I think I understand the intent, sort of get our administrative ducks in a row before moving forward with this. On the third operative clause in the therefore be it resolved, 3B, where it talks about the allocation, I'm just wondering if that was what, pardon me, if the funding allocation shouldn't be more in line with the original initiative, because the original initiative had specific goals and plans for each year. So in year 1, it was to do certain work, in year 2, certain work, and those dollar amounts followed. So rather than canceling year 1 and then continue on with years 2, 3, 4 as they were presented, would it make more sense to shift them over by 1 year, which would put the in 2024 it would be the 152,500. In 2025, then would be the 355, and 2026 would be the 238. It just sort of made sense in the way that economic development had laid out their plan for those 3 years, and the dollar amounts flowed to first year, second year, third year. I'm just wondering if that makes more sense.
And I know exactly what you're coming from, where you're coming from on that. It's just in this $45,000 of one-time funding is to still continue to create that future for and that direction for Lethbridge. So I don't know if 2024, 2025, and 2026 are going to be exactly what was laid out previously, is what I'm seeing here. But I totally understand where you're coming from, and I'd be open to putting those numbers in there. It's just more or less setting some dollars aside, and I guess we're really not, it's from MRSR, so how that changes and that information that'll come back from that, the vision that we'll get back from putting out that $45,000 to look into this, those numbers may change. And so they were just what was brought forward previously, as you had mentioned, from going through our budget debates, but those could change completely, the numbers. They could be less, and I'm hoping they're not more, but they could be less than what they are there right now. So I would be okay to change those if that's something that you see would make a difference. But
if what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, is that they're just sort of placeholders for now, and they would come back different according to plan, then I'm okay with leaving it as is. I just thought, since the dollars allocated were for specific periods of the plan, rather than leaving the 355 for the first year, whereas it was actually indicated it was 152,000 would be sufficient for the first year. That was my only concern.
And I would be, and I'm liking what you're saying there, and I think those, if you take the full amount for the different initiatives for all of the years, if we took over those last 3 and actually just divided them equally, because at this time here, when we come back and we get this consultant comes back with, okay, maybe the money, the funding is less in the first or more in the first and less in the second and third year. But that's what we're looking forward to having come back. So the numbers that were there aren't in stone. It's the dollars amount that I think we'd set forward from budget, that we do have that from MRSR, so it's one time, so that could fluctuate as well. Would you be more comfortable of kind of just dividing them up into three?
Mr. Mayor, now that you've said that they are placeholders and we'd be debating the actual amounts in a year, I'm fine with leaving it as is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But next in the queue is Councillor Middleton Hope.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
A question to the mover in regards to the fourth whereas. Administration is to report back on the development of a creative industries policy in 2023. I would be more comfortable with a first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And I recognize my colleague nodding her head, indicating that she has an issue with that as well. So I'm wondering if we could make a friendly amendment to that. And what were you thinking in terms of timeline?
And I like the idea. We've actually spoken with a few of you regarding that, and a Q1 to come back, and even if it's up to Q2, I'm okay, whatever. I'm just looking at administration, and that's, you know, January, so this is by the end of March. Does that give enough time? I'm seeing, I mean, pushing it to November is one thing, or throughout the year, but is 3 months, do you believe, would be enough time? I'm not sure if it would be.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. I would suggest that we could report back early in the new year with a specific timeline. But if for now, if you said by the end of Q2, that should be ample time. But if we can do it more quickly than Q2, we would endeavor to be back before council.
So would it be okay to, I mean, the two that are here that have questioned me on this, if we put no later than the end of Q2, is that fine? And I'll ask yourself first.
Yep. No later than the end of Q2.
No later than the end of Q2, but I'd like it to come before the provincial budget comes, because they're going to be announcing their budget, but we should also be starting to see some granting opportunities come then as well. So I would like that well in advance of those granting opportunities coming too. We already know that there are 6 shows scouting in southern Alberta. Those 6 shows are over $5 million each. And there's a projected $550 million coming to Alberta in this industry in 2022. And we're already missing out on those by not having this in place. So Q1 would be my preference, no later than Q2 before that federal budget, or before that provincial budget comes out.
And I'll put no later than Q2. I'll take that as a friendly. And we've heard the discussion, so obviously we are cognizant of that. And you're right. It's something that budgets have increased quite substantially within Alberta for the movie and film industry, and it's something definitely that is booming. So we're going to see that more dollars come in I would think, in the budget coming up, provincial budget. So it's great to be part of that.
And then
Chair.
Mr. Westerson has made the amendments to the motion. Yeah, report back no later than the end of Q2 2023.
If I could clarify, the whereas clauses are for background, so it does say that it was already directed by council. I'm just going to ask administration, was there a specific quarter that it was directed, or was it just 2023 in general? And you would have to build that into the motion. So we need it in the therefore be it resolved, if you're going to give any further direction on it.
Q4 2023 was in the original report from administration, so.
Have to rescind that and change the date.
Well, I don't think it was in the motion. I think it was just in the report from administration. It was not in the motion. It was just in a report.
So we might need some time to look into that and clarify that. I
Maybe
don't know if
we'll
administration has any.
Because I know we do see is the date of November 14th was in there, but I don't believe we'd actually had that in a previous resolution. Correct me if I'm wrong. From Mr. City Manager or through to his designate. Carly?
There was no date, but I'll just draw attention to where you have the $45,000 was to expedite the process. So administration alone would have probably taken the rest of 2023, but if it were to be expedited, then that end of Q2 2023 would be just fine.
does that still answer?
Then the Q2 would be moved into the therefore be it resolved section as well.
Direction for, under number 2, and report back.
Really what you're saying, instead of November 14th, we'd put Q2? Okay.
Right. As number 3B.
You're satisfied?
I am, yes. I see no further.
I see no further discussions other than Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel. Do you have any further questions?
Nope, that was just the one question that I had.
Okay. Call a question.
Any debate? I think within the questions, I'll open debate. I think it'll probably be an opening and closing. We've heard already from Acting Mayor as well. We've had many discussions on this about the industry and how it is truly booming in Alberta. And so we do want to make sure that we act sooner than later on this. We don't miss out on opportunities that can present themselves in 2023 and beyond. And so, and I would agree that this will be part of the Alberta government's budget that's coming up here in May. So it's something that definitely we want to make March, April, soon. Hopefully we have it before May, before the election. But yes, so that'll be part of that. So we want to make sure that we're prepared for that, as we have not been in the past. So I'll take that as opening, closing. I don't see any other debate.
No other debate? Good, then we'll call a question. All in favor?
Brian, can you put that on the screen so the councillors can see what we're voting on for Teams? Please? Thank you. And can you bold the new part, Q2? Thank you.
Let's move forward, come on.
Call it again. I guess question's been called.
All right, we'll call a question again. All in favor? It would appear it's unanimous.
Councillor Croson?
In favor.
Thank you.
Amendment 2. Have this one? Okay.
Ready? Okay. Regional Economic Development and Tourism Strategy Draft Phase 1 Vision Amendment 2. Be it resolved that for the following 2023-2026 operating budget initiatives, N39, Economic Development Lethbridge, Agri-Food Cluster Irrigation. That's ignition. N40, Economic Development Lethbridge, Supply Chain and Logistics. N42, Economic Development Lethbridge, Market Intelligence. N56, Tourism Lethbridge, Sport and Meeting Development. N57, Tourism Lethbridge, Airport Marketing for Tourism. N59, Tourism Lethbridge, Digital Media Library. The Economic Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council, 1, approve funding for 2023. 2, approve funding for 2024 to 2026 contingent upon a qualified third party funded from the MRSR up to $75,000, providing a report with satisfactory findings to Council through the Economic Standing Policy Committee no later than November the 14th, 2023 on the following directives. A value for money review for Economic Development Lethbridge and Tourism Lethbridge. And B, the following Economic Development Lethbridge recommendations contained in the Phase 3 KPMG Fiscal and Operational Performance Reviews. I, clarify city's relationship to EDL and improve communications. II, board composition and size. III, review city's role and appointments on the EDL board. IV, or 4, candidate clarification and alignment of city region. And 5, or V, city investment.
I do see Acting Mayor is
Excellent.
I believe has something to add.
Hold on.
I would like,
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Mr. Chair. I would like to divide these. So I would like to divide out economic development Lethbridge initiatives along with 2B, and then divide out tourism Lethbridge's initiatives along with the rest of that motion. So yeah, I would like to make a motion to divide these out, to have separate discussions about the two of them.
Thank you for that. Madam Clerk, perhaps we can call a break so that we can amend some of the requests. Yes?
Go ahead and call a break.
Okay, then we're calling a break. Okay. Okay, so we're back in session. Mayor Higgin, you have the floor. Oh, you don't? Okay, so it'll be Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel then.
So what we did, and just in some further conversations with my colleagues, was to take the initiatives that were combined in the initial resolution and just provide some clarity around what we were asking Tourism Lethbridge to do, as well as what we're asking our city administration and economic development Lethbridge to do in regards to follow-up questions that we may have or follow-up information that we may have for these budget initiatives.
As a result of that, we've now split the motion in two. That's the proposal.
It is still sitting as one motion with two parts. So I would leave that to, if council wants to split that in two, we can, or we can approve it as one motion just with the two parts with clarity around both of the organizations.
And Madam Clerk, is it sufficiently different from the first motion that we need to read this out again?
Yes.
Right. Motion arising to, stay tuned. Be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council for the following 2023 to 2026 operating budget initiatives. Point 1, N56 Tourism Lethbridge, Sport and Meeting Development. Point 2, N57 Tourism Lethbridge, Airport Marketing for Tourism. Point 3, N59 Tourism Lethbridge, Digital Media Library. 1, approve funding for 2023. 2, approve funding for 2024 to 2026 contingent upon a qualified third party funded from the MRSR up to $75,000, providing a report with satisfactory findings to Council through the Economic Standing Policy Committee no later than November the 14th, 2023, on a value for money review for Tourism Lethbridge. N39, Economic Development Lethbridge, Agri-Food Cluster Ignition. N40, Economic Development Lethbridge, Supply Chain and Logistics. N42, Economic Development Lethbridge, Market Intelligence. Point 1, approve funding for 2023. Point 2, approve funding for 2024 to 2026 contingent upon administration to follow up with Economic Development Lethbridge on the status of the below recommendations contained in the Phase 3 KPMG Fiscal and Operational Performance Review and report back by January 24th, 2023 meeting of Council through the Economic Development Standing Policy Committee. A, clarify city's relationship to EDL and improve communications. B, board composition and size. C, review city's role and appointments on the EDL board. D, mandate clarification and alignment of city and region. And E, city investment. Questions? Councillor Parker.
Thank you. Well, out of respect to the acting mayor, do we first vote to divide, or is there, it's not divided? Okay, is this just how to, okay, so I do have a question then. Thank you very much for rereading that. My question may be to the city manager. How is this report that we're asking different from the resolution that we asked KPMG? Have we not got the information from KPMG, or do you guys, can please someone explain to me why this would be needed versus what we asked from KPMG a while back?
Thank you for the question. Through the mayor, I think the key pieces from KPMG, as you've seen on the motion, there's some things arising out of KPMG that still need to be acted upon. And I think what this does, so council has some decisions before them and is seeking some information by which to make those decisions. So what this would do is really, at a starting point, ensure that everybody's rowing in the same direction, that the current and future initiatives are aligned with very future-focused economic development and tourism strategy, and that council has that information from an economic or social perspective to make those decisions that demonstrate return on investment and help those organizations to affirm their values. So you may see that this comes back and says, yeah, you know what, we're focusing on the right things. This is exactly it. Or maybe the groups want to expand their scope and there's actually more they could do. So it really helps to provide that fact-based information for council to make decisions.
Thank you very much. So what you're saying, this is probably a good idea and something that our administration would support?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Carlson, a question?
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Middleton Hope. Through you to I'm not sure who the mover is now. I'm going to assume it's Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel. Deputy Mayor Schmidt-Rempel? No, acting. All right. Thank you. I'm just a little curious. In the first portion, it talks about a value for money review for tourism Lethbridge. And it seems to be now split so that we're not doing a value for money review of EDL.
No, I had that removed out of the EDL portion because that has been done already under the Phase 3 KPMG Fiscal and Operational Performance Review. If we do take a look at that, there are several spots where KPMG demonstrates economic development in Lethbridge's value for money. And if you recall, back in September, Economic Development Lethbridge provided us an update on their return on investment for city dollars. So certainly that's already been done. I think to do another value for money review for Economic Development Lethbridge would simply be a waste of time and money. But what we can do here is we recognize that out of that KPMG review, there were several recommended actions that were primarily the role of the City of Lethbridge to follow up on, and the City of Lethbridge administration team has not yet done that. So as City Manager Brierley just pointed out, this does give us some opportunity to rebuild the relationship with Economic Development Lethbridge, make sure all of our initiatives are moving forward in the same direction. We did just hear from Honeycomb Solutions that a lot of what Economic Development Lethbridge has proposed is moving in the right direction. So certainly it does have our administration team work together with Economic Development Lethbridge, moving those KPMG recommended actions forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Through you, Deputy Chair, Vice Chair, to the City Manager, if I can. It says to come back at our first meeting of Council, January 24th. Is that enough time, considering we've got Christmas break coming up, and I'm sure EDL has Christmas break and et cetera planned? Is that an appropriate amount of time, or should we maybe extend that a bit?
Thank you for the question. I guess I'm going to look to the team that's in the room. Unfortunately, I'm not there today with the details on that. I think this is just coming back with the plan forward. Mr. Elliott or Kleisinger, can you comment on
that? Thank you. Through the chair to Economic SPC. It sounds like much of the work has been completed and the answers are there. We just need to collect that information and put it together in a way that can be presented back on the 24th. So that's what we'll endeavor to do.
Excellent. So that is enough time. Excellent. Thank you. Final question, if I can.
Yes, you may.
Talks about, oh, thank you, Vice Chair, is the first operative clause talks about funding for 2023. I'm wondering if approving funding for 2023-2024 would be more appropriate, because if something comes back at the end of November and we're not approving it until after that, it may cause some, there's a workflow and a work plan. So that's my only consideration, is funding something to start that may end or may continue is kind of difficult. So I'm wondering if there was any thought of putting it for the fund the first 2 years of the cycle while we do this work?
And on that one, I'd actually like to ask Mr. Lewington to come forward, because I believe I only left the approved funding for 2023 as part of the original motion. I'd actually like Mr. Lewington to come forward and tell me how leaving that contingency clause in there is going to affect the projects that Economic Development Lethbridge are proposing for going forward, because I believe that contingency clause in there could cause us to lose some grant funding. So Mr. Lewington, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and explaining to council what we might want to do with that.
And thank you, Acting Mayor. My question was for both organizations.
So thanks for the question. I'll see if I can unpack this. Obviously, this is a bit of a surprise to us, having started this journey in June to now, a few days before Christmas, have our whole plan turn on its head. So I appreciate the opportunity to comment on that. For the committee's reference, the provincial budget is expected in February, because that's actually when it will drop. It requires about a month of debate. And of course, the budget needs to be approved prior to the election writ dropping, which will be April. If I come back to the creative industries one as an example, there's one grant that we've been contemplating. It closes January the 22nd. And so that will be a missed opportunity based on council's previous resolution, but I don't want to go down that because that would be out of order. That's a previous item of business. Speaking specifically to N39, we had contemplated both federal and provincial funding. And so the way those programs work is they are 3-year funding contribution agreements. So in the presentation we made on September the 26th, you will recall that we laid out why it's a 3-year block. If council only funds the first year, then those contribution agreements would be void. So neither the federal nor the provincial government will make a multi-year funding agreement for a 1-year commitment from the city of Lethbridge. In essence, those two initiatives would die. So that's N39, the Agri-Food Cluster Ignition, and N40, Supply Chain and Logistics. If we only have approval and commitment today for 1 year, then we would not pursue either initiative.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Lewington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I may have some more questions, but my question was directed at both organizations, so I don't know if Ms. Crane had a response as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Carlson. And we will be able to move forward with the 2023. You know, our challenge right now, as I know we've all spoken about every time I've come to council, is around workforce and capturing, you know, those qualified people to help us move forward. With specific funding for 2023, we would go out for 1-year contracts, which could be difficult to pursue. And we might not get the right people in the right jobs in order to do the things that we wanted to do. So there will be a bit of a challenge there, but we will be able to move forward. Our digital media library was a 2-year project anyways, so we do like that idea, and there was you know, a qualified staff in there with that position. So again, we can always go into market looking for that 1-year contract with the opportunity to extend, but that does make our work a little bit harder. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Deputy Chair, just because I've got Ms. Crane there before she runs away, the question I had, one of yours was around the airport marketing for tourism, and a lot of it seemed focused on the Flair travel to Tucson. Is that one still important, or can that one just go away?
No, thank you for that question. I do believe that it is very important, and you know, in discussions with our team at Opportunity Lethbridge, while I think we were all disappointed in the Flair Airlines postponement, there will be other destinations that come up. And we don't want to be looking at this reactively when that happens and to be scrambling around for those dollars. We want to be proactive about it, and we want to put plans in place and, you know, look at those areas. And we certainly can start some of this airport marketing because we know through the work that Opportunity Lethbridge and our airport partners have done about what those destinations that we want to be in are for. And as we, you know, kind of build this program out, we can use these funds to set that up so that we're ready and we're able to respond as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
And thank you, Councillor Carlson. Before I get to Councillor Dodick, I have a question for the mover. Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel, you made a comment, and I'm wondering whether it's a personal opinion or whether it's an observation that's shared. You indicated that we need to rebuild the relationship with EDL. To what are you referring?
Over the past few years, and as Chair of Economic Development Lethbridge, there has been some deterioration of EDL with Lethbridge City Council. And the rest of that would have to move into a closed session, because that would have to move into a closed session.
Councillor Dodick.
Before I ask the question, I just want this committee to recognize that the 3 initiatives over the 4 years with respect to Tourism Lethbridge are $165,000. The 3 initiatives requested by EDL are around $870,000. So my question is, and I'm not sure if it was answered to my, if it was actually answered, was that the new motion is saying or suggesting that a qualified third party has already provided a value for money review for economic development Lethbridge, and that was the Phase 3 KPMG Fiscal and Operational Performance Review, and thus the reason that that is no longer required or at least included in the motion. So could administration actually confirm for me that in fact the Phase 3 KPMG Fiscal and Operational Performance Review did in fact provide the value for money review akin to the value for money review that is being sought for Tourism Lethbridge?
Whom are you directing your question?
Administration.
I'm here. I'll answer that. So, you know, I wasn't here when some of that happened, but in reading it, I would say that this is a bit of a deeper dive. The value for money review, the KPMG review would be more 30,000 feet. Mr. Lewington might disagree. 30,000 feet, touched on some key things around board composition and some of the other points that are in the motion. Whereas the value for money review, if we go back to Ms. Slovak's document, you know, there were a number of emerging trends, a number of visionary potential topics within that document that you could go a number of different directions. And to say, are we focusing on the right things? Are we getting the value for money or return on investment, to say it another way, out of those in terms of the city and return on investment from an economic, a social, or other perspectives, to ensure that council has the fact-based information to make the right decision.
Okay, I take from that the value for money review from the KPMG was more of, as you said, a 30,000-foot level and not a deep dive as what is being sought when we're talking about a value for money review for Tourism Lethbridge. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, then the second part also is, even if we were to say that there was a value for money review and accept for the moment, just for argument's sake, that the KPMG already provided that value for money review, obviously that would not KPMG obviously did not have a chance to do a value for money review of the 870,000 being sought by Economic Development Lethbridge in N39, 40, and 42. I assume that would be accurate to say as well, for obvious reasons.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson, you may ask your question.
Thank you, Vice Chair Middleton. I guess I have some concerns, so I'm not sure who is now the mover of this. Is it acting mayor or Mayor Higgin, so I can ask?
This is an amendment to the main
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
Mayor Higgin put forward the main motion, and Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel is putting forward this amendment, and the amendment is
Okay.
quite vast, so.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'll ask it to one or both of them, because after hearing from Mr. Lewington and Ms. Crane, that approving 1 year of funding could put a lot of things in jeopardy or get us a lesser quality or lesser value of work done for the dollars invested. And I was wondering if, after hearing any of that, if either of you would consider perhaps massaging the resolution to reflect the funding the requests to do the work as, and we can debate each initiative as to their merits, obviously, but to approve the funding, but then do the further work that I think Mayor Higgin outlined, the value for money reviews, the further work from the KPMG review, etc. I think that's necessary work. I think it's valid work. It's work that should be done. But after hearing some of the responses that it puts other funding in jeopardy and these projects either will not go forward or could be of lesser quality, I'm wondering if that has raised any thoughts of.
Okay. Oh, you're froze.
Perhaps you could respond.
Councillor Carlson, actually, I'll respond. I think I got enough of the question. You're unfrozen now, but for a moment you were froze. Thank you for that. As a matter of fact, in talking both with Ms. Crane and with Mr. Lewington, I think it goes beyond 2 years for Mr. Lewington in that the funding agreement, as he mentioned, was 3 years. So if that funding does not, if we do not provide the funding from a municipal level, that jeopardizes the provincial and federal funding. So in discussion, I would be okay to add this, as I had already chatted with Mr. Lewington, is that if that funding, so if we approve this for the full term, and if that funding is not received from the federal government, the provincial government, because it is not in stone right now, but it's pretty, I would say pretty guaranteed we're going to be receiving this with our contribution. But if that did not happen, that funding would be returned to the organization. And I just, if I could see a nod, Mr. Lewington, is that, and that's, is what we had chatted about. So 2 years to me, and I just want to make sure, 2 years is as bad as 1 year to Mr. Lewington's organization. Now, different in with tourism, from what I understand, and there could be some chances and concerns of getting staffing for that time, but these could go on a year-to-year basis. Is that not correct? And that is confirmed that that is correct. So it's more on the EDL side of things for that funding, but to give some assurance and some comfort, if that funding does not come from the provincial or federal government, our funding would stop. So this is something that is, for EDL, in my opinion, to approve, and I know that's not in here, so I'm already amending my own resolution, I'm sorry, and because we're now sitting on a amended, so it's actually sitting on the floor, so I don't know if this has to be first voted on before and it sounds like yes, before I could actually adjust that, because I'm seeing some concerns with both of them, to be very honest, with the funding. So with both the amendment and the motion arising. So I don't know if Acting Mayor has anything to add, and I don't know if I really made it more confusing for you, Councillor Carlson, or did that Are you okay?
Mayor Hayden, that was exactly what I was hoping to hear, because I would hate to approve funding that we know is not going to go forward, because without our end of the funding, the other partners won't come to the table. So that was what I was hoping to hear, that there may be an interest in lengthening the funding, even if it's the first 3 years are approved, knowing that. So thank you.
And a question I would have to Madam City Clerk, we're first debating the amendment, correct? So not my resolution, but acting mayor's amendment to the resolution, okay.
No more questions? So the next then is to debate the motion arising, number 2, which is the amended version of the original motion.
Now, I would like to put an amendment to the amendment, if I could. Excuse me. That for N56 and N40, oh my gosh.
N39.
N39 and N40, because there's contingent dollars, so Mr. Westerson on that, or Madam City Clerk, to approve that funding for N39 and N40 for the full term, but in there, and I'm not sure how to put it, if the funding is not received from the other levels of government, that funding is returned to the City of Lethbridge.
So you're saying for 23 to 26?
2023, the whole term, yes, that's right. If that's okay with.
Contingent upon funding from?
Various levels of government.
Well, it can't be contingent, because I think, actually, Mr. Logan, if I can have you come up for the mic just for a second to ask a question, sorry. It can't be contingent because they need to see that funding, correct me if I'm wrong, from the provincial and federal government. Is that not correct?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. So the way the federal funding would flow, it's through Prairies Economic Development Canada, or Prairies Can. And the way that works is they're looking for a commitment for the 3-year funding match from the City of Lethbridge, and upon that basis would enter into the funding agreement with us. So we literally have been back and forth with them for a number of months and refining the terms, and pending the outcome of today's discussion, we're prepared to hit send on that final proposal, with specific to the agri-food piece. But you're right, if City Council eventually next month approves this resolution and the recommendation from this committee, it's problematic for us without that 3-year commitment. And I would assume that our regional partners and others would similarly not want to commit to a 3-year term if City Council itself did not.
Thank you for that.
I just actually had a question for Mr. Lewington.
Go ahead.
You said this was a funding match, correct?
Yeah, not in terms of percentage. So as it says at the bottom of N39, if any of you have the sheets in front of you, the very last paragraph of N39 reads as follows. The City of Lethbridge contribution of $340,000 over 3 years is expected to unlock additional federal, provincial, and other partner contributions of $1,052,684, resulting in leveraging municipal funding by 3.1 to 1. N40, same paragraph, very bottom of the page, reads as follows. The City of Lethbridge contribution of $318,000 over 3 years is expected to unlock federal, provincial, and other partner contributions of $810,570, resulting in leveraging municipal funding by 2.5 to 1. So in each of those cases, the city's contribution in terms of agri-food cluster is about 24.4% in terms of the match. And in terms of number 2, it's about 39.3%. So they're well under 50 cent dollars in terms of matching contributions from the City of Lethbridge.
Thank you very much. I'm just making sure our numbers at the top match the numbers at the bottom. They are a matching contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Dodick.
Mayor Hagan, we'll need that wording again. Apologies. So we've got in bold approved funding for the 2023 to 2026.
And I'm not sure of the wording. I don't want to put a contingent on on funding from provincial and federal, because we want to put it to still have that funding available and not contingent on getting theirs, because only if we don't get theirs do we see that funding back. But it sounds like it'll happen. If that wording could be captured in there. So it is approved, and if other levels of government or other contributors do not, if we don't get that funding, that the dollars are returned. And I don't want to put contingent again, because we've heard is important to be able to get that funding to move forward.
Don't think we see contingent as a part of the motion.
No, just as approved funding there. I don't see anywhere about dollars being returned, or did I miss it?
I think they're working on it.
Okay.
But it sounds like with the funding to be returned, other levels of government, okay. They're working on it. We'll see it go
Okay.
up shortly. With funding returned to the city of Lethbridge.
I have the money guy over there. Perfect.
Treasurer's helping. Yay.
To the mover, Mayor Higgin. Mayor Higgin.
Now, and I just want to confirm, because it's important, Mr. Lewington, with that verb, does that, as far as funding, that would not have provincial, federal funders be concerned with that verbiage? I just don't want to lose this funding.
Yeah, I would just simply recommend that Clause 1 uses the word matching funds in two different contexts. You may want to use a different word. So approve the city contribution for 23 to 26 with funding returned to the city if federal or other matching funds, something like that, just because matching doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Sorry, is that a friendly? Okay.
Ready? So final questions from
Dodick has a question.
Councillor Dodick.
Not a final question. I'm going to propose an amendment. It's likely not going to be a friendly one. And the amendment is, it's going to be a little out of context, but you'll understand what I'm trying to do in a second. At the end of, could you go back to now you got all sorts of numbers in there. The first part of the resolution, at the end of 2, where it says value for money review for tourism Lethbridge, I'm going to propose an amendment, I'll put it in writing if necessary, and economic development Lethbridge. Now that was in the original one, and it wasn't that long ago when I asked the question of administration, and the city manager did indicate that there seems to be at least a little bit of a disconnect as to whether or not a value for money review of EDL was done by the Phase 3 KPMG fiscal and operating report. He referred to it as being a 30,000-foot observation and not so much as a value for money review as was contemplated in the resolution as initially as written. And I also remind Council that we're talking about new initiatives that obviously have not had a value for money review on the total over a 4-year period of time of $870,000. So I suspect this is not going to be a friendly or accepted as a friendly amendment. So I'm prepared, if, I suppose I need a seconder if they agree with me. I do not need a seconder.
Seconders, but you do need the mover of this amendment to agree to it being a friendly.
Well, is it friendly? please?
So I will accept that as a friendly, but I am going to ask Mr. Lewington to come up first. And please speak to the questions that we have reporting back at the bottom of our page here. So the clarify city's relationship to EDL, and in the communications portion, board composition, city's role, mandate clarification, and city investment. And I'm going to ask him just to speak to what he saw in the KPMG report as value for money as well. Can I do that before I accept your friendly? Okay, Mr. Lewington, if you wouldn't mind.
I think I understand the question is around the KPMG recommendations. So if we go back 2 years ago, KPMG conducted their third-party external review of my organization. They did a documentation review, they did a number of stakeholder interviews, and our section of the report was approximately 54 pages long. There was a key review of both our metrics and benchmarking against our peer groups. So if that's not a value for money review, I don't know what would be, frankly. And there were 5 key recommendations that came out of the KPMG report as areas of opportunity, which you see in the motion. And inside of those, there were a total of 13 sub-recommendations. So in September of last year, prior to the last municipal election, members of the city's Agenda and Priorities Committee met with the executive committee of my organization to review those 13 sort of recommendations or guidelines. EDL put forward a number of potential recommendations, most of which required the city to respond, which to this point has not yet happened. So for example, in 5 of the 13, they start with the words city to evaluate, city to open dialogue, city with council manager input to review, council to discuss, council to open up. So from an EDL board perspective, our view is that the KPMG report was a value for money exercise. It did benchmark, it did provide recommendations. Of course, in the context of that point in time, we provided recommendations and actions back to the city of Lethbridge. You know, from a board perspective, we consider the report closed, pending further input at some point from this organization and yourselves. What I will draw your attention to is they contemplated the concerns that Councillor Dodick raises around how to move forward and how to address future value for money. And so the first recommendation inside of number 5 around city investment reads as follows. EDL to develop and present a business case for additional investment in economic development and submit to council to evaluate for consideration, which I would argue is what each of those new initiatives is, and that's specifically the presentations we provided to SPC in September was to accomplish that particular recommendation. So KPMG said, you know, you are an effective organization relative to your peers. You are underfunded on a per capita basis relative to your provincial peers. There is a need for, and there was a recommendation for incremental, that's additional city investment into the organization to fund very specific projects. And as I said, their recommendation was that we develop those business cases and bring them forward. That naturally falls through this 4-year budgeting process. That is our opportunity to bring forward new initiatives and use the existing process. So that's what we've done. The second component of recommendation number 5 reads as follows. The city to reinvest for EDL initiatives that are high priorities for the city. And that is perhaps where this dialogue is challenging in that, you know, perhaps council, although you've identified regional economic development and tourism as your number 1 priority on your action plan, there's been perhaps limited discussion on what exactly that looks like and what that means. So our organization, working through the MOU and the mandate that we have from City Council, has provided you with a list of initiatives that we believe are high priority. And again, these are not Trevor's ideas. These are the board, these are the community and business leaders that you task with the mandate of identifying what will move the Lethbridge economy forward, how we should diversify the economy, and those are the discussions that have been ongoing this year. You have 3 representatives to the board who would have been a part of and heard those discussions. So, you know, again, the assumption is through the developing our business plan and those recommendations, that's also an opportunity for City Council to help set those priorities and help us identify. So, you know, again, my view differs somewhat from the city manager, and that's okay. We don't all have to agree. I do believe that the KPMG report was a fairly in-depth, lengthy process. It did result in very specific recommendations, and one of them is to provide an opportunity for incremental new investment in key strategies and initiatives, which is what I believe we've done.
Thank you very much. Having heard that, Councillor Dodick, do you still want to include your amendment?
I do so, particularly when there's acknowledgement that he indicated, Mr. Lewington indicated that he differs somewhat from the city manager in the interpretation of what the KPMG report said value for money review is. And also, we're still talking about $870,000 in new initiatives, and let's, for the sake of argument, saying that the KPMG review was a value for money review, and the city manager and Mr. Lewington were on the same page, which they're not. It still has not dealt with the $870,000. By adding in that amendment, it's not going to impact the ability of EDL to operate if, in fact, Mr. Lewington's position is correct, that it is a value for money review with the KPMG, at least up to the point of the $870,000, then it's really just an affirmation of what Mr. Lewington says, and it'll be an affirmation that the $870,000, if it would be approved, was value for money. And we've got Tourism Lethbridge and EDL both being undergoing the same exercise, and we'll get a response from whoever is retained to provide the value for money review as to both organizations for the money that they've received in the base budget together with the new initiatives, should they be approved. Thank you very much.
Then I will accept that based on Councillor Dodick's rationale.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions? Yes?
Clarify one thing, because we do have N39 and N40, but N42 just has a 1 year with no follow-up below, or is that, oh, no, I'm sorry, it does have the report back in, my bad, we're good, thank you.
Certainly. Seeing no other questions, open it up, Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel and or Mayor Blaine Higgin for debate.
This would be for acting mayor. It's her amendment. Correct.
Thank you very much, and I certainly thank everybody for the robust discussion around this. These two organizations are very valuable to the economic development and economic motion of our city, part of our strategy in setting our space up within the province of Alberta. Understanding that there does have to be some examination. Certainly we can look forward to doing that, but I also believe we need to move forward with these initiatives so that we don't fall behind, and so that we can still prove our value to the province of Alberta as a place for tourism, as a place for developing that agri-food corridor that we've already started, and as a place of transportation hub, building on the airport and building on the other supply chain and logistics that we are working on. The market intelligence portion of economic development, Lethbridge's of their N42 initiative certainly speaks to what Councillor Middleton Hope spoke to earlier with regards to workforce recruitment to our area, and that's something that we're going to need to have to do if we want to recruit successfully to our area for these and other areas of employment. And with that, I would ask for council support. Thank you.
That's your opening and closing, I take it?
It's my opening. I'll think about it.
Right. Do. No more questions, no more comments for debate?
Councillor Carlson came on. Oh, and then he shut it off.
Oh. So.
Sorry, I thought I saw Councillor Trosen try and enter the conversation, but I'm not sure if she can see or hear us.
Oh, I'm just ready to vote. I've been ready for now.
Okay, sorry, thank you. That I was just trying to let you know that I thought I saw Councillor Croson buzz in, but I didn't.
All right, so to be clear, we'll be voting on the motion arising, which is the amendment as proposed by Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
So that, to be clear,
With friendlies from Councillor Dodick.
I will be even more clear. So Mayor Hagan put forth the motion arising, and it's been amended by acting mayor. So we're voting on the amendment with the friendlies. If it passes, then we'll be voting on Mayor Hagan's main as amended. If it fails, we'll be voting on Mayor Hagan's main not amended.
Great.
What you see on the screen. right now,
All right, then. We'll call the vote. We can do that?
unless you
All
want a
right.
roll call.
Call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Croson, you're in favor?
In favor.
Thank you.
So now it would be the main motion as
Main motion.
amended.
Question.
Call the question. All in favor?
Do we not get questions and debate on the main motion as amended?
Councillor Carlson, thank you very much for admonishing us. All right, questions?
I thank you. I appreciate the need to be speedy. I guess I'm curious. I appreciate most of what's been done today. One of the things that I do have issues with, and because we dealt with it with economic development by approving the 3 years, I'd like to propose an amendment that N56 be funded for 3 years. I'm going to recommend it be funded in total. That is one of the main points that has come out of the Lethbridge 2042 strategy we talked about earlier today. I know that sports tourism, sport and meeting development is imperative to our community. It's one of the biggest drivers in tourism, in hotel stays, in restaurant visits, et cetera, to our community. And I would hate to see that not go forward. So I'd make a motion to amend, and if it's not a friendly, obviously I'm hoping somebody would second it, that N56 be funded for the entire 4-year request or initiative as the full year initiative.
And I guess that's to myself, it's now my motion. So I won't take that as a friendly, as I've already heard that 1 year is okay from Ms. Crane. So I won't take it as a friendly, but you can obviously bring that forward if you wanted to in writing.
I'll see if I can get a second, or if not.
I'll second that, Councillor Croson.
Thank you.
Councillor Carlson. Councillor, I guess it's his.
Yeah, it'll be Councillor Parker.
No, I just, I appreciate the comment from the mayor saying that the 1 year, as stated, was going to be okay, and then that could work. They could work with that. So thank you for that clarification. It's no.
Just an amendment to Mayor Higgins' main motion.
All right. Do we need a debate on it?
Debate.
Debate it. Anyone in the queue? No one in the queue.
Thank you. I'll open the debate. It is, this initiative had a 3-year plan. It is only requiring actually 3 years of declining funding from the city of Lethbridge as it will demonstrate a return on investment to our partners in the community who deal with sport and meeting development. Sports tourism, as I've said, is an integral part of our community. If you look at all of the sporting events that we've celebrated in our community in the past years, it's because of an ongoing investment. It's because of an ongoing work with our partners, and not just partners here in town, but partners around the country or internationally in some cases. These have massive impacts for our lodging, our restaurateurs, our entire community, our entertainment community, as well as one of our biggest, some of our largest venues. This is work that I believe desperately needs enhancement. I would not like to see us fall behind in this. And so I'm hoping that Council, after reading the Lethbridge 2042 report, would understand that this is a very integral part of our tourism strategy that needs continuation and needs investment. And so I'd ask for my colleagues' support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Next in the queue is Councillor Dodick.
Councillor Carlson's debate has convinced me I will support his amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Crowson.
Well, I appreciate that Ms. Crane said that they could do this with one-year funding. What I find is a lot of people in not-for-profits are so used to doing without funding that they often agree to it, even though it may not be in their best interest or in our best interest. As Councillor Carlson mentioned, we know that sport and meeting development is absolutely essential to tourism in Lethbridge, and there is a well-thought-out plan under this initiative for how to move this forward. It's essential for our community, and I hope my colleagues will support approving the funding for the 4 years.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Just to iterate what my colleagues have said, you know, just look at what we've done historically over the last number of years in this realm, and it is massive. And just look to the Briar, for example. That's the amount of impact that it had, bringing it in, and we can look forward to things like the Memorial Cup, for example, or the Canadian Open Golf Championship. You know, there's the opportunities are endless. We can think outside the box, and we can reap the benefits. So I would ask for my colleagues' support on this amendment as well.
Thank you. It appears to be no further debate.
I will on the amendment, because it's, yeah, I'd like to debate the amendment, could I? Yeah. So on this, I won't be supporting this, and the reason is we've been discussing this for how long, and we've got these dollars putting out to a qualified third party to come back. By November 14th, I would suspect it to be earlier than that. The funding will continue forward. We're trying to tell an organization when they should use the funding and not what we've already heard in the questions that we've asked. And so for that reason, I believe they'll be getting this as the report comes back, but that's why we're having the third-party report, and we keep piecemealing this out, but for that, I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. Councillor Parker.
Thank you. Just to add on to what Mayor Hagan was saying, we were told that 1 year was sufficient, it's fine, and they totally support the idea of the review and all that, from what I heard as well. And so we could take each one of these out and show logic, and we could debate each one of them separately, but I think that's the reason why it was originally brought here, is to do a review, but knowing that these organizations will still get the money and that they're okay, and if things go good, they'll continue to get funding in the years to follow. So I won't be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments in debate? No questions, but of course, comments. Then we close debate.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Appreciate the comments. This is something that I think is important to our community. Doing a stop and start on it may not have the impact or benefit that we're hoping for. Just to remind Council that while this is in the 4-year cycle, the first year is the largest amount of investment because that's when the bulk of the work gets done. The investment does taper off and is actually only a 3-year funded investment from the city. It's envisioned that in the 4th year, this will be self-funded through our community partners as we see the benefits to this sport and meeting development plan take shape. So I hope I can get my colleagues to support this. I think it's important, as is proven by the Lethbridge 2042 report, and I would hate to see it piecemealed out. So with that, I'll call for the vote.
Done. Debate is concluded. Roll call on the vote. Call the vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Crowson.
In favor.
Councillor Dodick.
Favor.
Vice Chair Middleton Hope.
Favor.
Councillor Palladino.
Opposed.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Favor.
Deputy Mayor Parker.
Opposed.
Mayor Hagan. And Councillor Campbell.
In favor.
Carries 6-3. Vice Chair, if I may, I'm not sure we captured one of the friendly amendments accurately with regards to Councillor Dodick, that EDL be added to the end of number 2 with regards to value for money. Right, but what, is that in regards to N42? Because that just signifies N56, 57, 59. We'd have to add if that's in regard to N42, contingent funding for 24 to 26.
Madam Clerk, is the vote defective? Is the vote defective?
We haven't voted on the main yet. So if we need clarification, now's the time to do it.
I have a question, Mr. Vice Chair, on that.
So if I might, to capture what the friendly was supposed to intend, or what it was intended to mean, you probably would have to go add a 3 sorry. Okay. Go to number 2, where it says approve funding for 2024, 2026, contingent upon, and then you do the upon a qualified third party funded from the.
Yeah, those are for the tourism, 57
I know,
and 59.
but the initial one had 75,000 for both of them.
Did.
Yeah.
L at the very end, maybe we could put for initiative and 42, 24 to 26 funding.
Well, it was. Well, the value for money exercise was supposed to be for everything. Yeah. So what are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting, was the intent of your motion to have the 24 to 26 funding for N42 contingent upon the value for money?
For all 3 initiatives, just like the value for money exercise was for N56, 57, and 59, the same thing for 39, 40, and 42.
39 and 40 did have full funding for the 4 years approved already. But we could add all 3 in anyway.
Well, the intent of the friendly amendment was to have.
All 3 initiatives?
Yeah, because I forgot that when it was split up, that it all of a sudden, but it was supposed to be for all 3 initiatives, and that's why I kept saying 870,000 for all 3 initiatives.
Okay.
So maybe.
So, Mayor Hagan, would you take that as a friendly?
To be very honest, I'm so confused right now. No, that's fine. I will take it as a friendly. That's fine.
So this is one way of doing it. So look at number 2, where it says under the economic development, Lethbridge. So you do approve funding for 2020, 24, 2026, contingent upon indent, 1 small I, a qualified third party funded from the MRSR up to $75,000, providing a report with satisfactory findings to council through the Economic Standing Policy Committee no later than November 14, 2023 on a value for money review, semicolon, indent, 2 small i's, and then upon administration to follow up with economic development, Lethbridge, and so on. sure use those as small i's instead of the other. That does it, though. Just a sec. Well, that was the intent anyways. Hmm? I was thinking about that, but maybe I'll ask the question of administration. I wonder, as we're waiting for that, if I could ask anyone from administration, like the number 75,000 initially was in the resolution to deal with a value for money review for both organizations. If you split it at 37.5 for each, do you think that would work?
That's a question for myself or for Mr. Matthews? Okay, because I was going to say, many of these things are going forward, and so really, you're spending 75,000 on a couple, we've piecemealed this so much out right now, but Mr. Matthews, up to.
So, to members of Economic SPC, if you split it between the two, the 37.5, obviously that comes up to the $75,000. It would only up to that. I would envision the work would be done by the same group, and it would just be contracted out that way. But if it's easier for the resolution, that might be the easiest way to go.
So, Mayor Hagan, would you take that as a friendly?
Yes.
Okay. So Councillor Carlson has a question.
Up to, yeah.
Carlson? Councillor Carlson?
Councillor Carlson took his hand down, sorry.
Okay.
If it's still up, my mistake.
All right, are we ready? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we now call the question.
Maine is amended.
Motion as amended, correct. Please,
Yes.
Madam Clerk, do the roll call.
Are we clear,
now-
though? Is
No, we're
everybody
not.
clear? No?
There's questions in debate. Did you need questions on this? Because this is as amended.
I have no further questions, so don't look at me.
So I will open debate then.
I assumed that we'd.
Gosh, after all of this, I'm almost feeling I'm not voting in favor of my own resolution here.
Brian, can we make copies for council, please? Thank you.
Because I do want to see this as full if I could. There's been so many changes here, so. Can you give me a summary? Yes, sir.
We still have to approve this at council,
I know.
so we can change it. I hope my car starts.
It had everything in.
Thank you, sir.
You enjoy my amendments?
Yeah, good. Vote for it, yep.
It's beautiful. I think it's exactly what it was before.
Okay, we've all had the opportunity to look at this. My opening and closing debate, because I don't see anybody in here, is I'll ask for council support. Question.
Well, I can't.
All right, the question has been called. Madam Clerk, please do a roll call.
Counselor Croson.
In favor.
Counselor Dodick.
Favor?
Vice Chair Middleton Hope.
Favor.
Counselor Palladino.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Parker.
Favor.
Mayor Hagan.
In favor.
Counselor Campbell.
In favor.
Counselor Carlson.
In favor.
Carries unanimously.
Job. We're gonna nip some things in the bud here. We're gonna nip some things in camera because there's two issues going on right now.
And we'll have a break, but we'll return in closed. So I can have a motion to go in closed. Councilor Palladino, all in favor? Thank you. And
Mr. Mayor, I have to sneak away, so you guys take
All right.
care. We'll see you Friday.
thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
So, do we have to go in, or can we start already? Do you want to stream this, or do you want to stream this, or can we?
Should stream it
Okay.
for transparency.
Right. good, Jessica? Janessa. Jessica. I'll call you. My apologies. Janessa. Start of homeless shelter building lease agreement, verbal, moved by Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee direct that the closed meeting discussion with respect to the homeless shelter building lease agreement, verbal, remain confidential pursuant to Section 23, local public body confidence, excuse me, public confidences, and 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Acting Mayor.
I'll call the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.2, moved by Deputy Mayor Parker, regulated rate option legislation and funding agreement update, verbal. Be resolved, the Economic Standing Policy Committee directed the closed meeting discussion with respect to the regulated rate option legislation and funding agreement update remain confidential pursuant to Section 23, local public body confidences, and 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Deputy Mayor?
Question.
Question been called. All in favor? You opposed? Carries. And for 7.3 from Councillor Middleton Hope, intergovernmental update, verbal 7.3, be it resolved that the Economic Standing Policy Committee direct that the closed meeting discussions with respect to the intergovernmental update remain confidential pursuant to Sections 21, harmful to intergovernmental relations of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Call a question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Mark's gone, that's right.
With that, we are adjourned.
See you all Friday.
See you, Belinda. And thanks everybody online